Welcome back to my channel. I'm Jai. This is JRV Life, and on this channel, this is about my life after my career pivot from medicine to focusing more on the arts and creative writing, singing, songwriting. I started off this series after the degree to talk more about my life and the thought processes that I went through when I was determining that I wanted to switch from medicine. And I guess it can apply for any big change in life, any career switch, any pivot that you may be trying to do. So welcome to the channel. I hope you enjoy this video. I hope you check out my other ones. This video is going to be about the 3 major mindset shifts that I had to basically brainwash myself into believing, that helped give me more peace of mind, more courage, and helped me explore my options. In my first video, I talked about how I basically went through the whole brief as I could make it summary about how I changed my life in a year by changing my career and choosing myself, and just choosing not to go the beaten path. I'm gonna make this video quick. I wanna have longer videos, more long form videos, and then shorter videos that are more digestible and that you can get like a daily dose or like a dose of encouragement, upliftment, and just empowering vibes, I guess I want to say. So the first huge mindset shift that I've talked about before, I've talked about it before in my previous videos. If you're watching, you might have clicked on this video because you have some questions or thoughts, or you've had something like pulling at the back of your mind with regards to the training process that we go through in medicine. When you get to these, career paths that are very demanding and time intensive, there's this history and this culture around you putting in your hours and putting in your due diligence and your time in order to earn, the right to be called a certain thing or the right to be in a position. And in medicine, the history of training in medicine in general is crazy to me, and I didn't learn more about it until I was, already in residency and actually I wasn't even thinking about it in med school because it was just like, get to the next step, just get to residency. So I was not aware of the history of training in the US. And, people, you hear that it's hard, but you can't be prepared for it, basically. It's actually much better. It's actually much better than it was historically. I mean, the people that I know and family members that I know that have talked about their training back in the 80s and the 90s, what they went through, like call every other day, call every 3 days, every 4 days. Like, you really had to love this to do that, because I think that should be another video, because some people stick with it because they put so much time into training for it, and so they're just like, well, I'm already here, so I might as well just stick it out. That's a whole nother video. But either you love it or you just feel like you put the time in and you gotta stay. What they went through back then for pennies, I'm not even gonna get into it, because when I found out how much a hospital or like training program receives per resident versus how much they actually pay us, crazy to me. And then you think about it, because the number hasn't changed for the past how many decades, the number hasn't changed. When you think about how much, you know, the older generation of physicians were getting paid when they were getting these huge payouts per resident, it's insane. So basically, in the early part of 2021, I was finishing up intern year, and I was realizing that I was not happy doing this work. And it became very clear to me over the rest of the year that I did not want to continue doing this. And it felt never ending. And not in the way that people say, you know, residency ends and you reach attendinghood. This is very true. Residency does end. However, what doesn't end is just the demand on your time, your psyche. It just, and for the specialty that I was in, I didn't really see the benefits for me staying, even if I was gonna practice after residency. So this first point, that the huge mindset shift, that was like the first one. I want to say that was one of the first major ones that came early on in 2021, was like, yo, I'm not meant to suffer. Like, I'm not meant to be sleep deprived. I'm not meant to be up at all hours of the night. I'm not meant to be emotionally exhausted, physically exhausted, mentally exhausted. And then on top of this, you know, I really think the more and more I think about it, the more I'm like, the pandemic really did a number on my mindset towards me being in medicine, and if it was worth it for me. Because in my specialty, we were basically the front. I mean, the emergency department is the front line of the hospital. And for that constant exposure over time, and you see, it's not anything about the patients, it's not even about the hospital system. I think for me personally, with my interest in public health and my public health knowledge, during the pandemic, seeing how we failed miserably with a public health crisis as one of the most developed nations in the world and one of the higher income countries in the world, it was just like, wow, this is not worth it, and especially not here. So that's personal to me. But the mindset shift of not being meant to suffer comes with the deconstruction of the training that we are basically meant to just put our heads down and get through this class, get through this boards exam, get through this year after year after year, get to residency, get to attendinghood, just constantly being on that conveyor belt of just putting your head down and like just suffering and taking everything and just going through it just because the people before you did it, just because the people around you are doing it right now, just because you put all this time in. Like, there's no reason at all. And so I began to see that, I think unfortunately we've all been, or a lot of us were socialized to have kind of an addiction to suffering and have this, I don't know, like martyr type complex thing that we have to save everyone. It's not anything heroic to give from an empty container and to not have anything to replenish yourself with, or any time or any space or any resources to replenish yourself with. Now, I'm speaking very generally because, like I said in my other videos, I had a great program and I had a lot of support. It's just the culture in general of medicine and the training that we go through. So that there's no heroism in suffering. I noticed like a lot of bravado, and it's, for me, I think because around this time I was getting back into my creative side, I was tuning more into how I was feeling and understanding the world instead of letting the external tell me. And so I was born with a very strong intuition, and so I can see through a lot of things pretty clearly once I tune into myself. And so a lot of what I saw is like false bravado, or just this weird, it's so weird, it's this weird addiction to the complaining and groaning and moaning and sucking it up. Like, it's like, there aren't really words to explain it. I don't know if that's just because it's a cultural thing, and I'm sure there's a whole bunch of think pieces about it, but if you get what I'm saying, you get what I'm saying, and it's pervasive. It's pervasive. It's a lot of, there are things that are part of the job. There are things that are part of the job, and then there are things that should not be part of the job. Like, being an ER doc, you see a lot of people and you don't always get the thank you. That's part of the job. That's part of the job. It's up to you to, if this is what you want to do, what you want to build on, then to take those moments where you do feel gratitude, or you do get a thank you, and keep those close to you. Keep your notes, keep your keep the thank you notes that you might get and things like that. But that's something that's a part of the job. What's not part of the job is getting yelled at or getting reamed out by some off-service attending, or getting shit given to you by some off-service nurse. That shouldn't be part of the job, and that shouldn't be part of the, there's a cultural thing where if I'm suffering or I'm not happy, then it bleeds out, and you shouldn't be happy either, because you're the lowest of the low. You're an intern on the totem pole. And again, this is just in general, like I said before, but that shouldn't be a thing, For me, I think, like I said, personally, it was the pandemic and seeing how easily dispensable and unprotected we were by our current system in place. And it was just unfortunate. So that's point one, that major realization that I'm not meant to suffer, and I don't have to. I don't have to. At any point I can choose to do something different. So then point number two, and I think this was huge. This came later in the year of 2021, probably around the summer, because by that time I had started writing songs again and like parsing out my emotions in poetry, and I was getting more balance in my life. And I began to see that what was fulfilling me, which was my creative endeavors, my creative side, I began to see that, and not even see, like I began to feel that what was fulfilling to me was more so of the writing, and that, you know, the things that should have been like moments of excitement for me or fulfilling for me at my job weren't, they just weren't. Like, I do well on a procedure or well in a high pressure or high intensity situation, and it didn't feel like the satisfaction that I got from writing. And so the biggest differentiation, you know, I talk about that story with my friend who pulled out her laptop and was like, well, let's find you another job. And while that was like a revelation to me, it was something new. Like, that's what a revelation is. Like, wow, this is a new way of seeing the world. The mindset shift that kicked in later that year, after I felt that, you know, I had options and I was more balanced in life. I was doing something for me, and I was choosing and able to do things that were fulfilling for me and were satisfying for me, and felt like something good. It felt like I was doing something good. That was when I was like, oh, there is a difference between a job and work. Like, I remember journaling one day, like, all I want to do is good work. And it feels like I go to my job, or at the time, so this is how I used to talk. It feels like I go to work and I just go to work. Like, I am there, I'm helping people, but it doesn't feel like anything to me. It doesn't feel like anything to me. And this is after, you know, I've been in therapy for a few months. I've been, you know, rebalancing my life. Everything's opening up from the lockdown. And so I'm realizing that it's not, like, I've done a lot of what I can do, and yet I'm still feeling nothing, or I'm feeling empty from the job. And so, you know, everybody's like, you go to work, you get on shift, go to work, work, work. But I realized that my concept, my definition of good work was me writing and, you know, accomplishing my small daily things that made me feel good, which included writing at least a song, or you know, doing my vocal lesson for the week. These are all things that I did and talked about in my previous video to like start rebalancing myself and my life, and just seeing if I could do both. Like, if I could do emergency medicine and, you know, just, you know, have a normal life, or if I could do both and do emergency medicine and write music. So that, when I redefined what work was for me, what felt like work, what felt like good work, what felt satisfying to me, I realized that I had a different process. I had a different definition of work in my mind. Like, for me, work was something that was fulfilling and satisfying and that I enjoyed, and a job was just something that you can get and something that there are a lot of. And so in my mind, I had to split it and really start to pull apart my attachment to my job as my work, and really basically brainwash and retrain myself to see it as what it was, which is just a job. Because if you die and you leave that job, there are other people that will replace you. But I feel like everyone is born with a purpose, and everyone is born to do something good in their life and do good work. And it's only something that you can do. So I had to like retrain myself to see that it's okay that, you know, this job isn't working out, but I have something, I finally have something that is fulfilling and satisfying for me. So I'm free to explore that. I'm free to explore that, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to do that. So really, that was a huge mindset shift that I think I got pretty down pat by the end of the summer. I think that was because by that point I had been writing every day. I was doing the singing, and I was also exploring other jobs. So not just, you know, what can I do with my skills from being in medicine? What can I do with, you know, a public health degree? I was also exploring the possibilities in music and what kinds of jobs that I could potentially do in music. And I was realizing that there's this huge world out there of different things that you can do just because you want to. So I think sometimes I revert now, and I will use it interchangeably and say, you know, like I'm going to work or I'm going to my job, but I still do my best now to say, you know, I have, you know, some job stuff to do today when I'm referring to my day job. So when I'm referring to my day job, I'll say, you know, I have some job stuff to do today. And I try my best to say, you know, I try not to say I'm going to work or I got work to do when it comes to referring to my day job. I think at one point too, I definitely called it a side job. I'm gonna have to go back to that because speak it and it shall be, okay? So yeah, I do my best to keep them very intentionally separate and in their own categories because my work is my work and I feel so good and fulfilled doing it. And then my job is my job, and it's there to fund my life and to pay for my work and whatever else I want to do with my life. So I was very intentional about that. The third and final shift that was huge for me that year, and this was towards, I think, the fall of 2021. No, actually, no, this is probably more towards this is towards the fall of 2021 and honestly the rest of my final year of emergency medicine. And it was a mantra in my head that I used with sense and with reason, because I'm gonna say it and you might take it the wrong way the first time, but I'm gonna explain it. So in my head, I would literally just say, fuck this job. Fuck this job. And when you first think about it, it sounds crazy, right? Because, you know, you're in this healthcare role, whatever, provider position. But if you pay attention, you watched any of my other videos and paid attention in that, you would have heard me say that, number one, it is not anyone's fault that you're in this situation. It was not anyone's fault that I was in my situation. And so, two, it shouldn't be anyone's fault. And you shouldn't be bleeding over anyone about, you know, your frustration and discontentment. All of that, keep your energy as best you can, okay? Especially if you are in a healthcare position. And I really believe strongly in the energy that you bring to a room, that you bring to a team, that you bring to people, and especially when you're dealing with sick people, there's no room for that. So when I say this, please understand that it's in reference to the fact that it's a job and there are other jobs, and I was training myself to be able to see that there are other jobs anywhere else and I can do anything else. And I was trying my best to break the stronghold, okay? The stronghold that the attachment to the time and the energy and the money invested. Like, when I tell you that that's a serious reason people stay unhappy in their life, is the what is it called? Time sink fallacy, logical time. Let me Google it real quick because I don't want to sound stupid on the internet. Sunk cost fallacy. Okay. When I tell you, if I could bet on it, I would say sunk cost fallacy, fear of the unknown are the two top reasons people stay in the position they are in for whatever. This is beyond career. This is life, baby. That's what I would say. So when I decided, or I was very close, every day I was like, okay, well, weighing more and more, the scales are tilting towards me dipping up out of here, not to St. Lucia, but to just creating my life the way I see fit. The way I had to drill it into my head that, bro, this job is a job. Because you can have all the revelations you want in your brain. You can see the sunrise a million times and not deep that you are just a blip on the radar. You can brainwash yourself as best you can. You can write it a million times that this job is a job and I can do something else. If you don't believe it, if you don't feel it, you'll never have the courage to do what you want to do. You'll never have the courage to do what you need to do and what's best for you. So the way I had to drill in my head, bro, fuck this job. Like, if I don't want to write a note, damn, fuck this job. Like, there are other jobs that I don't have to write notes for, or there are other jobs that I don't have to do this for, or I don't have to do that for. Whatever it was that was irking me, or whatever it is that's irking you, there are other jobs that you don't have to do it for. And there are other jobs and there are other jobs that you wouldn't mind doing some of those things for. So it's very dependent, and you really have to know yourself. You really have to know yourself, and you really have to be able to really deep and tune in. I think I'll do another video on that too, because my journey to embodiment and to actually understanding what I was feeling and my emotions and everything, it's been years. Like, I'm not done at all. But yeah, so when I say fuck this job, it's not like fuck these patients or fuck this program or whatever. Like, maybe that's your portion. If it is, bro, take a sabbatical, leave. Like, sit your program director down and be like, yeah, people's health is in jeopardy if I stay here. If you are not able to, emotionally balance and tolerate and, properly allocate where your energy should be going and what kind of energy should be going where, to who and to what and why, and you're just unstable, destabilized, because it's a seriously destabilizing, like, occurrence in life. The crisis, existential crisis, okay? Like, what is it? Quarter life crisis, midlife crisis, and whatever else crisis. They're real things. They're very destabilizing. So I'm not saying this with any judgment. If you are not able to take care of people with your whole heart and mind because you are unhappy with where you are, remove yourself from that situation. Okay? It should not be fuck this job to the expense or at the expense of somebody's life. There is no excuse. There is no excuse. And that's all I can say. Like, this is how I got through, and I thought through and felt through and navigated through the chaos that is an existential crisis, basically, or a career pivot or a life change. So I had to really drill it in my head, because the amount of time, energy, and resources, people say blood, sweat, and tears. Baby, we're not even gonna get into it. That's not even a story. But you know, like, I mean, you know, you went through, if you're watching this, you probably went through a lot to get to where you are, for wherever you are. So yeah, you think you want something for so long and you work so hard to get it, and then you get there, you get to the top of the mountain, and you're like, this is it. Crazy. But yeah, I had to drill that in my head, bro. Like, and it was crazy because once I finally got it, once I deeped it, and I was like, yeah, that was a mantra that helped me understand that a job is a job is a job, and you know, you're easily replaceable. And really lean into like figuring out what's fulfilling for me, what would I like to be doing. So please, realizing that your situation is temporary is also part of that, because when I was able to be like, okay, yeah, I don't want to do this, fuck this job, like, realizing that it's temporary and you can choose to go a different route and choose something else is part of that, and it's huge. So again, these mindset changes and mindset shifts, they're not accomplished in one day. They're accomplished over time, and only if you reinforce them with, you know, feeling, and do it to the extent that you begin to believe it. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you took something from it. Take what applies, leave the rest. If you don't agree, that's cool. It's what worked for me, and I'm just trying to help, you know, anyone else who needs any encouragement or needs to hear how someone else got through it. So please take care of yourselves. Check out my other videos. If this is the first one you're coming across, I like to keep it calm over here. It's a little chaotic with the airplanes and my neighbors, but thank you for watching. My socials are in the description below. You can follow along, subscribe. I think I'm gonna start putting up my vlogs soon, so that you can see more of the life after the degree and what I've been up to. Thank you.